Wow, another video subject that's awfully murdery. Well, we know you guys love the darker stuff, which is why I've launched a brand new crime podcast. Extra special for all those murder lovers out there. It's called The Casual Criminalist, and we've written up some of the darkest stories that I could find, from the UK doctor who was the worst serial killer in history, to the time an American socialite murdered her best friend with her car, allegedly, and totally got away with it, and much more. But it's also laid back, it's more freeform, there's the occasional laugh thrown in, because isn't death hilarious? Weekly shows wherever you get your podcasts. It's also in video form on YouTube. There are links below, and let's get into the video. On June 15, 1878, railroad magnate and former governor of California, Leland Stanford, gathered a group of journalists and horse racing enthusiasts at his Palo Alto stock farm to witness a historic experiment. As his guests looked on, Stanford's prized harness racing horse, Occident, galloped past a bank of 12 cameras arranged on the side of the track. As the horse passed each camera, its legs broke a wire strung across the track, closing an electromagnetic circuit and tripping the shutter. Once the run was complete, Stanford's photographer developed the plates and presented them to a stunned audience. The sequence of 12 images revealed in stunning detail the full motion of the horse's gallop, including a single frame which clearly showed all four hooves suspended off the ground, something that many at the time thought impossible, and is the reason why many paintings of horses before this show an incorrect gallop. Prior to these photos, human eyesight simply wasn't up to being able to accurately see what the horse's hooves were doing at full gallop. With these photos, however, even one of the driver's straps, which had broken during the run, could be seen flapping in the breeze. For the first time in history, time itself had been frozen, all thanks to the genius of an eccentric, wild-haired British photographer named Edward Muybridge. Edward Muybridge was born Edward James Mudderidge on April 9, 1830. Throughout his life, he changed the spelling of his name many times, finally settling on Muybridge as he believed this to be its original, authentic Anglo-Saxon form. In fact, the unique spelling of his first name was derived from that of 10th century Saxon king Edward the Martyr, inscribed on the coronation stone in Muybridge's hometown of Kingston-upon-Thames. In 1850, Muybridge emigrated to the United States to work as a literary agent for the London Printing and Publishing Company, moving first to New York and then to New Orleans before settling in San Francisco in 1855. After 5 years running a successful bookstore and photo gallery with colleague Silas Selleck, in July 1860, Muybridge decided to return to England. After missing his intended ship, the Golden Age, on July 2nd, he boarded a stagecoach to St. Louis, from where he would take a train to New York. But on July 22nd, near the border of Texas and Arkansas, the coach crashed and Muybridge was ejected through a window, striking his head on a boulder. He awoke in a hospital bed in Fort Smith, Arkansas, having no recollection of the previous 9 days. Suffering from searing headaches, double vision, nausea, and deafness, he remained at Fort Smith for 3 weeks until he was well enough to continue on to New York. There, he spent a further 6 weeks recuperating before finally boarding a ship bound for England, during which time he successfully sued the stagecoach company for $2,500 in damages, which is about $80,000 today. Back in England, Muybridge was tended to by Dr. William Gull, physician to Queen Victoria, who recommended plenty of rest and fresh air in the countryside to aid his recovery. Muybridge thus moved in with his mother in Kennington, where he took up the hobby that would consume the rest of his life: photography. Though Muybridge would make a complete physical recovery, it soon became clear that the accident had left him profoundly changed. Once a practical, even-tempered businessman, overnight, Muybridge became the very model of an English eccentric, prone to impulsive behavior, flights of fancy, and wild mood swings, the classic symptoms of a frontal lobe brain injury. It was even said that within days of his accident, his hair and long beard had turned from black to bright white, giving him the appearance, in the words of one contemporary, of Walt Whitman ready to play King Lear. But this personality change seems to have unlocked Muybridge's creativity. As well as mastering the finicky wet plate photographic process, Muybridge filed several patents, including for an improved process for plate printing, a new kind of clothes washing machine, and a sky shade that allowed photographs to be taken in bright sunlight without the sky being overexposed. In February 1867, the now changed Muybridge returned to San Francisco to pursue photography full-time, adopting the moniker Helios and converting a two-wheeled buggy into a mobile darkroom that he dubbed Helios's Flying Studio. In this vehicle, Muybridge traveled throughout the American West, capturing large-format images of its stunning, larger-than-life vistas. His 1868 exhibition of photographs taken in the Yosemite Valley brought him worldwide recognition, and his photographic skills were soon in high demand. And so it was that in 1872, Leland Stanford hired Muybridge to compile a photographic portfolio of his estate, including his horse Occident. During this time, Stanford told Muybridge of a spirited debate he was embroiled in with fellow horse enthusiasts over whether at any point during a gallop all four of a horse's hooves ever left the ground. As alluded to, most artists and horse experts believed that at least one leg always touched the ground, and that if all four hooves ever did become airborne, they did so while extended fore and aft in the classic hobby horse pose. Stanford, however, believed that the hooves left the ground while tucked up under the horse's body, but as the human eye was too slow to see this movement, well, the debate raged on. At Stanford's urging, Muybridge decided to settle the matter once and for all. The challenge proved more daunting than anticipated. Not only were contemporary photographic emulsions extremely slow, but most cameras didn't even have shutters. Photographers simply removed and replaced the lens cap to take a picture. After developing his own more sensitive emulsion and a spring-loaded shutter that allowed exposures of 1/500th of a second, in 1873, Muybridge managed to capture a blurry snapshot of Occident showing all four hooves off the ground. While a stunning achievement, Muybridge's subsequent retouching of the negative for clarity, a common practice at the time, led to the press dismissing it as a fake. Undeterred, Muybridge promised Stanford he would capture a clearer, more definitive image. But Muybridge's project was suddenly interrupted by a shocking chain of events. In 1871, the 41-year-old Muybridge had married 21-year-old divorcee Flora Shawcross Stone. While the union was largely an amicable one, the couple had wildly different personalities and interests, with Flora spending her evenings at social events while Edward preferred to remain home reading the classics. This mismatch in temperaments eventually led to Flora carrying on an affair with a family friend, Harry Larkins. At first, Muybridge suspected nothing, trusting that Larkins was simply acting as a chaperone. But on April 15, 1874, Flora gave birth to a son, which the couple named Florado Helios Muybridge. Later, while visiting the home of Flora's midwife, Susan Smith, to settle a bill, Muybridge noticed a photograph of his son on the table. Turning it over, he found an inscription reading "Little Harry," written in his wife's hand. Realizing what it meant, Muybridge stamped on the floor and exhibited the wildest excitement. His appearance was that of a madman. He was haggard and pale, and his eyes glassy. He trembled from head to foot and gasped for breath. That was from the San Francisco Chronicle on February 6, 1875. After coercing Smith into producing love letters between Flora and Larkins, Muybridge decided to take matters into his own hands. On October 17th, he confronted Larkins near the Yellow Jacket Ranch near Calistoga and shot him through the heart with a revolver, declaring, "I have brought a message from my wife. Take it." After the shooting, Muybridge surrendered himself to the police, and on February 3, 1875, his trial for murder began. His primary defense was the dramatic personality change brought on by his 1860 stagecoach accident, with his attorneys C.H. King and W.W. Pendergast attempting to claim a verdict of not guilty, saying, "Both on the grounds of justifiable homicide and insanity, we shall prove that years ago the prisoner was thrown from a stage, receiving a concussion of the brain, which turned his hair from black to grey in 3 days, and has never been the same since." Several witnesses for the defense, including the midwife Susan Smith and employees of Yellow Jacket Ranch, testified to Muybridge's volatile personality, while Dr. G.A. Shurtleff, superintendent of Stockton Insane Asylum and witness for the prosecution, argued that Muybridge's calm demeanor after the shooting indicated he was likely not insane. After 3 days, the jury returned a verdict not guilty, though not surprisingly on grounds of insanity. Rather, Muybridge was acquitted on grounds of justifiable homicide, meaning he was justified in killing Larkins for seducing his wife. They say that if their verdict was not in accord with the law of the books, it is with the law of human nature. That, in short, under similar circumstances, they would have done as Muybridge did. That's from the San Francisco Chronicle on February 7, 1875. To escape the media circus surrounding the trial, Muybridge fled to South America and spent the next year in working exile, only returning to his motion studies project in 1877. This research led to the production of progressively sharper images, culminating in the historic July 15, 1878 demonstration, in which Muybridge achieved shutter speeds of as fast as 1/2000th of a second. These photos, taken 1/25th of a second apart, not only revealed that all four of a horse's hooves did indeed leave the ground, but that they did so when tucked up under the body, just as Stanford had suspected. It is widely reported that the experiment won Stanford a $25,000 wager, but this has never been definitively confirmed. Muybridge's horse photos caused a sensation when exhibited as magic lantern slides at the San Francisco Art Association on July 8, 1878, and several of his images appeared in the October 19, 1878 edition of Scientific American. His work became much sought after by artists to help them better depict horses and other animals in motion, and in 1882, Muybridge returned to England and and requested a grant from the Royal Society of Arts to continue his motion studies. But unbeknownst to him, that same year, Leland Stanford commissioned Dr. J.B.D. Stillman to write a book titled The Horse in Motion, whose illustrations were based directly on Muybridge's photographs. As Muybridge was not credited in the book, the Royal Society accused him of plagiarism and denied him the grant. Muybridge tried to sue Stanford and the book's publisher, but Stanford successfully argued that as the images technically formed part of the original estate portfolio commission, they were in fact his property, and Muybridge was owed no credit. However, Muybridge soon found another patron in the University of Pennsylvania who commissioned him to perform motion studies on humans and animals from the Philadelphia Zoo. Between 1883 and 1886, Muybridge produced over 100,000 images of animals running and humans engaged in various activities, including gymnastics, sports, and military drill, many of which were published in his best-selling 1887 book, Animal Locomotion, an electrophotographic investigation of connective phases of animal movements. Catchy. During this period, Muybridge also invented a device for projecting his image sequences, which he dubbed the zoopraxiscope. This consisted of a 16-inch glass disc, around whose edge was painted a sequence of 12 images based on Muybridge's photographs. When placed in front of a magic lantern and spun, the disc allowed a short sequence of motion to be projected before an audience. This system was exhibited at the Zoopraxographical Hall at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. While a financial flop, the exhibit was nonetheless the first commercial movie theater in history, predating the Lumiere brothers' historic cinematograph by 2 years. Muybridge continued to travel, lecture, and publish books until his death from prostate cancer on May 8, 1904, at the age of 74. His pioneering work inspired dozens of scientists and inventors, including his contemporary Etienne-Jules Murray, who in 1882 invented the chronophotographic gun, a rifle-like device that could capture a series of 12 images in rapid succession on a single photographic plate. This was the ancestor of the modern cinema camera, which, through the later work of the Lumiere brothers, William Kennedy Dixon, and others, would eventually give us the 20th century's definitive art form, the movies. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, please do check out my new podcast, The Casual Criminalist, links below. And thank you for watching.